Hey there and welcome back to this fourth and last part of this short video series where I explain 3 of the main concepts that I am using in my Beyond Systems Human Basics training approach. Now, since it's been raining the last couple of days, I took you inside. I guess that's not really a huge problem. Right now in this video, let's just dive into the concept of consciousness, or rather the development of consciousness. So in the next couple of minutes I'm going to explain to you why I think that is really important, and I'm also elaborating on what exactly it is that I'm talking about when I talk about this development of consciousness. Now, I know there are many different definitions out there of what consciousness actually is, and for the sake of keeping that video under 3 hours, I'm not going too deep into explaining what those different approaches to the term consciousness actually either have in common or see completely differently. Also, when we talk about consciousness, there are so many definitions out there. Psychology defines it a little bit different than neurology defines it a little bit different than spirituality, and so on and so on. And eventually, in my opinion, if you really want to dive into an understanding of what consciousness in its whole is or can be, it's maybe the better way to put it, you have to go beyond just intellectual approach to it anyway. Just reading some books about it, just taking a lecture, a neuroscience lecture or a psychology lecture, literally won't give you all that benefit that you could get the second you actually start to explore this whole concept of consciousness on your own, also using certain techniques to just literally make experiences with it. And that brings me back to part 1 of the video of this short video series, where I talked a little bit about the importance of experience. I don't want to jump into that right now again. If you haven't watched that prime video, then just jump back. It's, I think, the second video in this series. Alright, anyway, right now let's jump into this development of consciousness. What is it? Why is it important in my work? And why do I think it is important for literally each and every one? And most importantly, another part I'm going to explain in this video is why this development of consciousness is something, and how, most importantly, this is something that you can use and that can help you on a regular day basis as well. Alright, let's get started. First of all, in most cases when I work with people, what I do is that I focus on a very physical approach to the development of consciousness. So that's just simply one layer of all the different things that consciousness can be or is actually. In this specific case, let me explain. Our body has conscious and subconscious aspects to it, meaning there are parts in our body that we can consciously perceive very precisely, and there are parts and functions in our body that we cannot perceive at the same precise level, or at least most of us can't when they're not in a specific way trained. So, for instance, you definitely feel your muscles when you work out. You have a more or less good sensomotoric feedback from your legs while walking, and so on. Another part would be our heart. Most people do not feel the heartbeat. Most people do not feel, without taking their pulse literally, how fast the heart is beating at the moment, or how hard, how heavy. Another aspect would be our breathing. While our heart is, I'd say, to a large part, maybe to 90%, 95% subconscious, then let's take a look at our breathing. Our breathing has conscious and subconscious parts to it. As I always say, you can't kill yourself by holding your breath, just simply because as soon as you hold your breath, and if you're mentally very strong, you hold your breath to such an extent that you fall unconscious, that second of you falling unconscious, when that mental lock is released, the reflex will kick in and automatically restart your breathing. Obviously, that only goes for if you do that in a non-submerged, so not underwater, but on the surface way. What does this mean? Our heart is obviously a very subconscious area. Our breathing has conscious and subconscious parts to it. Same goes for the digestion and so on. Now, obviously, it's possible to train yourself in such a way that you can influence your heartbeat consciously, that you can influence your breathing consciously. Yes, that's absolutely possible. When I talk about this physical development of consciousness, this very first layer, the reason why I like to use it is because you have instant feedback. The body is something we all have, the body is something we all use, which is exactly why most people, even those who haven't done anything specific with their body in, say, the last 20, 30, 40 years, even those, they still can reclaim a very precise perception of the body with rather little training time. And that's the point. On a physical level, the first stage of development of consciousness literally means to start to feel areas of the body again, to have a sensory, conscious sensory feedback of all different body parts again. Or, to be even more precise, to have the possibility to tune into the information that your body instantly always has. You can imagine it like that. All the information out of your neurological makeup, all the information of all sensors, whether it's proprioceptors for movement and stuff like that in your joints, in your tendons and so on, if it's tactile sensors, if it's chemical sensors, all that feeds back into your brain. So the information is definitely there. It is part of what is held in the so-called subconscious area for a good reason. If you were conscious about all of those tiny little aspects on a regular day basis, 24/7, you wouldn't be able to really experience life anymore, because you would just suffer from a massive informational overflow. So this is why this division between the conscious and the subconscious is in parts actually something that really helps you to live and to even make experiences. Now the important question is, okay, why then would it be important to be able to tune into this subconscious information? The answer to that, or one of many answers to that, is because the better your ability to tune into the current status of your body, the more precise you know exactly where you're at. Let me give you a very specific example. Say, for instance, for the past 15 years, you were on a specific diet, say a specific diet in terms of something not very healthy, say a lot of soda, a lot of alcohol, a lot of fast food, and so on and so on. So stuff that really shifted your whole body a little bit out of whack. If then you try to regain a more holistic, more healthy way of eating, at the beginning it will be really difficult, because at the beginning, whenever you push something in the extreme, even if you push eating something healthy in an extreme, like say if you eat avocados for 10 years and nothing else apart from it, again, your body will eventually sort of pendule out of whack and pendule out of its balance aspect. The problem with that is, after such an extreme on the one or on the other side, the body always needs time to actually readjust and to find its natural balance again. Once this natural balance is restored, you do not have to rely on any specific dietary system that is out there anymore. Because let's be honest, with diet, it's pretty much the same than with movement. At the beginning, when you start becoming conscious about it, if you weren't brought up that way, you might have to learn a specific tool in order to rid yourself from some pain or in order to remobilize your body. Or, in terms of nutrition, you might have to use a specific diet in order to detoxify your body, in order to recharge some of the biochemical batteries in your body, and so on and so on. But eventually, once a foundational function is regained, what your body does is that it offers advice, meaning whenever you are at the point where you got rid of that massive imbalance between polarities, then in terms of nutrition, you literally just have to listen to your body. And that's not something completely energetic, not something completely spiritual. There are energetic parts to it, but basically learning to listen to the body, listen, quote unquote, literally means that the body tells you in terms of what you just feel like having right now, what you crave for in a specific moment. The body suddenly gives you the information of, today I'd really like to eat zucchini. And the other day it might be a salad, and the next day it might be potatoes with whatever. So basically, and it's really not about what exactly it is then. Most importantly, it's really the body tells you out of its own library of things. Because you've probably eaten potatoes before, you've probably eaten zucchini before, you've probably eaten a salad before, you've probably eaten tomatoes before, or I don't know, chicken or whatever if you're not a vegetarian or vegan. So the point is, your body knows biochemically and vibrationally, and what the taste of those different things that you have a name for actually is. So it tells you, it literally tells your taste buds and your just your gusto. It tells you, yeah, I think today I want to eat this or that. And at the beginning of one's recovery from an extreme, sometimes it needs a dietary system in order to even break that solidification in the polarity. It needs a system to shift you back into a status where you hear those impulses from the body again, and where those impulses are not damaging you. Because if you push the body too far in one side, if for instance you're used to eating a lot of sweets all the time, and you listen to the cravings of your body, it will tell you, I need more sweets. But that's because it develops literally some sort of dependence on that sugar level. And that's what I mean by you have to balance it out again. Once you show the body a healthy biochemistry again, then suddenly It will not tell you, I need sugar, and I'm sure I only need sugar and nothing else. Sometimes it might tell you, yeah, right now I'd like something sweet. And sometimes it will tell you, no, I don't like something sweet, I need some vegetables right now, just to balance my biochemistry. As mentioned before, same goes for physical aspects in terms of body movement, body training, and so on and so on. Once you've shifted your body back into a natural state of equilibrium, it regains the ability to tell you precisely what you need and when you need it. Sometimes it might tell you, today you need relaxation. Sometimes it will tell you, today you need action. Sometimes it will tell you, today you need to go for a run, or you need to go to the forest. And yes, you'll know those things. You'll know those things because you'll just simply feel inside and today I don't really feel like doing weights. Today I think what my body needs is literally just going outside into nature, breathing in some of those absolutely wonderful smells in spring, breathing in all this fresh air and just having a good, solid connection between my physical body and nature itself. And some other days, it's the gym. And that's the thing. That's one of those very fundamental aspects of development of consciousness. There are two ways. One way is to use specific systems to get the body back into this sort of neutral position where it can actually give you credible and really healthy advice. And the other way can also be a substitute, is literally to develop your perception, to develop your physical consciousness to such a level where you can actively pull aside that mist that lies between the conscious and the subconscious area. Because subconsciously, there is all the information you need. Subconsciously, you can literally tune into how all the different structures in your body feel, how your spleen feels, how your digestive system feels, if there is too much mucus in the lungs, and so on and so on. And you can detect that way before you actually get a cough. You can detect that way before you actually fall ill. So one of the biggest benefits of development of consciousness on a physical level is literally that you will be able to detect extremely precisely and very, very early compared to the alternative how your body is doing at a specific time, what you need to rebalance it way before you even come close to a problem that develops in terms of a disease or an illness or something like that. So this is one of those prime layers of the development of consciousness. Now, another aspect in all of that that instantly jumps to mind is the result of such an increased awareness. And that result literally is more freedom. You're less dependent on a specific system. You're less dependent on, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to go there. You're less dependent on a specific doctor. You're less dependent on a therapist. You might still use them. Obviously, sometimes each and every one needs them. But at some point, you can just reduce the dependence on additional outside help. And not just that, can also reduce the dependence on certain extremes, whether it's the sugar side, or it's the fat side, or it's the diet soda side, or it's in terms of physical movement, it's you always have to do 40k, 50k runs, just simply because that is literally the drug of your body already. Now, it's a little bit different if we're talking about someone who is really in high-end sports, say an Olympic runner, a weightlifter or something like that. Obviously, to a certain extent, people like that have to go a little bit beyond this pure concept of listening of what the body wants right now in order to just be healthy, because they definitely push the limits. But still, using such an increased awareness can also massively change your way of training, your way of approaching training, and can fine-tune when you actually do what. The training regimen might say, right now you have to eat 2000 calories, then you have to go to the gym, then you need to go for your 10k swim, and then you have to go back, eat another 500 calories, and so on and so on. Fine-tuning would look like, okay, right now my body needs this and this and that, in terms of now I'm gonna eat this. Then, how does it feel like? Okay, I think right now I'm gonna hit the swimming pool, because right now that's exactly what my body can deliver at peak performance. So sometimes it will just simply naturally change your training regimen. Now I know some people out there who are in training, they would say, whoa, you can't really increase your performance if you constantly change and if you don't really stick to a certain training plan. I bet to differ. And I've worked with pro athletes myself, and I used to be in sports as well. So I can tell you, oh yeah, you can mix up your schedule if you truly have this conscious connection with your body. It's absolutely possible. And true, a certain structure will still be necessary, but there is much more, again, freedom possible and fine-tuning possible to actually tune to the specifics the body can deliver at a certain point, without depleting your long-term reserves that quickly, which is a major problem in pro sports. Alright, enough from that side, let's just shift back into consciousness. Another thing that being conscious or using more consciousness also means is it means that you are more present in a specific moment. So development of consciousness literally also means things like I'm more aware of my current surroundings on a regular basis without it stressing me out. And that's very important. Normally when you walk through the city, again, conscious and subconscious aspects, depending on how focused you are, most people walk through the city with a very end-gaining focus, meaning they know where they want to go, they are processing maybe the last phone call in their head, while on the other hand thinking, okay, where can I get my dinner or whatever on the way back home? Where am I going to eat tonight or something like that? That's all true. And then there are some people who are extremely open to the moment. Sometimes those people who are extremely open to the moment have the problem of losing themselves in all those impulses from the surroundings. Literally having the problem of social anxiety stuff and so on, and just being completely overloaded, whether it's by other humans or by other environmental impacts and influences that have an impact on that. So the thing here is, yeah, I can focus on a specific thing. Say if I walk through a forest, I can focus on listening to the singing of the birds. I can focus on the sound the wind makes when it just gently flows through the leaves of a tree. I can listen maybe to the sounds of sirens and cars in the distance somewhere in the city. I can listen to that when I focus on it. And to be more conscious in the moment means to even get closer to that threshold of what you perceive and how you act and interact with it. If you're so completely focused in a phone call or in your thoughts where you want to go, your gaze literally narrows. It's almost like driving a car in a tunnel. You don't really see left, you don't really see right. Sometimes you forget when crossing the street to watch to the left, to look to the left, to look to the right, and so on and so on. And that obviously can be even a very dangerous situation. To be in the presence and to have a certain healthy way of consciousness developed, also consciousness for your surroundings, from where you're standing at right now, that can literally help you to balance yourself on a more conscious level. Meaning, the second you realize that over there is a group of people that completely stress you out because they're arguing and so on, you have a much better way of consciously deciding on how you actually want to deal with that impulse, rather than just walking by on the phone, completely focused and trying to push all those outside influences away. I know that's sort of this paralysis most people find themselves in our modern nowadays world. The funny thing here is, some people, they even sort of dial their reception down completely. They are so numb to outside influences that it takes a week or 2 weeks in nature or on holiday for them to actually even reconnect with themselves on some level and really start to feel themselves again. Sometimes they even close themselves off themselves in order not to be sort of in the position where they have to deal with all those thousands of impulses that flow in. Now, this approach seems to work for some, but eventually the stress is still there. Because just because you decide you just want to focus on your phone or on your next meeting or something like that, this doesn't mean that the physical interaction with your surrounding is suddenly shut out. On the contrary, it creates a gap between your mind, your emotions, and your body. And that gap, if trained for long periods of time, completely disconnects you from yourself, and it disconnects you from your moment, and it disconnects you from feeling, which again has reverse and adverse effects in your relationships, in your ability to interact with people, no matter if it's on an intimate level or if it's on a work level, as boss, as just simple worker, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it has an influence. It also has an influence on your health. And if you're in such a state, there is a huge gap between what you know consciously and what your body actually tells you. And that huge gap again is one that you can close with a development of consciousness. It literally means that you are more aware of your surroundings, even if you are focused, even if you have a specific end goal in mind. But it means that you can do so on a completely floating basis. To talk about that neurologically or even psychologically, the subconscious mind is always considered the more powerful one. Yet it is not healthy to flee completely from everything that's going on in the subconscious. What's really important is actually to merge conscious and subconscious as much as possible and to allow for information flow between them. Conscious information flow between them, that is. Much more conscious than most people are doing it on a regular day basis. And that is really absolutely crucial, because the second, again, it gives you freedom. The second you consciously perceive a stress impulse in your surroundings and you decide how you want to react to it, not only do you have the opportunity to maybe just avoid it, but on the mid and long run, you can even consciously develop a certain way of dealing with that specific stress impulse. Say, if that stress impulse for you specifically is the crowd in the tube, in the metro, every single time you go to work, you can find ways to deal with those people that surround you in a much better way when you actually put a little bit of conscious effort to it. Eventually, at the beginning it sounds like, oh boy, boom, even more things I should think about. My mind is already so completely crowded and I can't think about how do I deal with this, how do I deal with that. But that's the thing, it only takes a thought. Your body, your subconscious, they do the work for you. You don't have to develop massive strategies on your own, consciously, in terms of brainstorming session, how could I manage that better, how could I avoid this crowd, no, maybe not avoid, well, can I go in a plastic bubble? Or it's not about that. It's about recognizing what is there, recognizing the impulse, recognizing the effects on the body, and then deciding how you want your body to deal with it. But that is something that has to happen consciously. If that is not done consciously, then the subconscious will always try to push it away, but it will never ever completely fade away. It will never dissolve completely if it's a chronic impulse or if the impulse reaches a certain level of intensity. And that's what's creating this gap between your physical reality, your body, and your mental reality. That's what's disconnecting people from themselves. And that's what's creating so many different problems. So, this aspect of developing your consciousness also means developing your perception of yourself and being in the present moment. Even if you think about a meeting in the future, you can simultaneously be grounded and be present right now, right here, without having to think about whether or not next time you cross the street you just missed that car that hits you, without having to thinking about whether or not all those impulses that you experience in the city, from the sirens that pass by, from all the people that just hit you because they run faster or slower than you or walk towards you, or the light pole you almost hit, and so on. You don't have to worry about that anymore because you are centered in the moment and you are adaptable. You can instantly shift from one side to the other, and so on and so on. Again, it gives you freedom. And while it might sound stressful at the moment, more stressful at the beginning, it is not in the long run, and it is even preserving your energy rather than the opposite. Because all that energy, the body has to spend anyway. The question is, do you want to spend that energy in a productive way that actually helps you to deal with those circumstances? Or does the body have to take that energy without you even consciously recognizing that it does? Because it needs it to compensate for something that you just don't want to see anymore because you feel stressed by it. There is a lot more to say about those things, obviously. But anyway, and as for spiritual aspects, obviously those grounding things, those centralizing things, those coming in the moment things, those physical development things of consciousness that I just mentioned, they should actually also be the foundation for development of consciousness of any level. Because if you develop your consciousness purely on a spiritual level, on some energetic plane, again, at some point, you'll eventually have troubles to integrate what you've learned in those energetic realms into your real life. And that integration should always happen. Another aspect, the last thing I'm mentioning right now, another aspect of coming in the moment. The more you connect with your body on a conscious level, be more conscious in the moment, the more that happens, the more you're internally, physiologically coherent. All your body functions will run much more smoothly. There are massive amounts of studies out there that have proven that on a biochemical, on a bioelectrical level, on a cellular level, even on a genetic level. And the point here is that type of interaction even means that that type of internal coherence and internal connection between all the bodily functions also means that your threshold before you actually have problems with an outside influence is much, much higher. The more you're centered in the moment, the more you're automatically centered in yourself, the more confidence you have, the more energy you have, and the more adaptability you have. And that's another 3 reasons why it's so important to develop your consciousness, and also why it's so important to focus on expanding your abilities rather than trying to fix one singular thing. And in everything that I do in my Beyond Systems training, everything that I focus on in working with people is facilitating experiences that allow people to reach those areas. Many of them are different. Sometimes it requires of me to literally teach a retreat where there are 10 or 20 people almost 10 or 20 times in that same time frame. Because some exercises you can give to all of the people, and sometimes you have to adjust and take into account all the individual differences and all the different already made experiences from all those different people. And so it's always a very individual process. There is no, this is exactly how it's done, always, and it will always work exactly like that. There is no such thing like that out there. Whenever we are really talking about personal development, about really stepping into your own power, into your own intuition, into your own grounding and your own passion. And each and every one out there has its individual strengths, his or hers. And that's so fascinating to explore. And I absolutely love this process to guide people through exploring themselves, because that's eventually what it's all about. It's not about talking about concepts anymore in any training. It's good to have this rough outline of, okay, that's why this might be a good idea. That's why an approach like that has potential to change something to the better. But eventually it's not about believing, it's not about this is right or this is wrong, it's not about do it like that and no other way. It's about facilitating experience that allows for positive results. I can explain in many cases why those results are happening, but beforehand, almost no one will be able to tell you that's the exact path that everyone should take, because something like that doesn't exist. Again, this is the reason why I work with basic principles and why I teach those, why I facilitate experiences, because experiences stay with you forever and they will be something that you can build on. Alright, those are 3 of the main concepts that I use in working with people. And in terms of consciousness, the first thing that you can do, the last thing I'm gonna talk about right now, that you can do even now, right now, literally, is just try to be conscious about something in your life for just a minute. If you can push it to 5 minutes a day. Doesn't have to be 5 minutes in one block. It can be 2 minutes here, 1 minute there, another minute there, and another minute there. If that's something that you can fit in your schedule, that's already a huge leap forward. What do I mean by focus on something in your life conscious? I would suggest something in your body. Take 1 minute in bed before you actually get out of bed in the morning, where you do nothing else than focus on one body part and your breathing. Or just simply sit down in your lunch break, if you have the chance, somewhere outside next to a tree, or otherwise just somewhere, and just focus 100% on what you're doing at that given moment. Either it's drinking your coffee or your tea or eating your salad, or again, simply just breathing. Or just stand outside, gently rock from one leg to the other, and just perceive how it feels on your feet. Everything that you do to consciously improve your perception of your body is something that will push you forward in a positive way, in ways that you can't even imagine right now. Because it's telling your body, hey, I recognize you. I know you're there for me. You don't have to go into this conversation with your body if you feel uncomfortable with that. That's all fine. It's something that happens automatically. The second you consciously spend time with your body, not in terms of, yeah, I was at the gym, I did something for my body. No. Even if you are at the gym, be 100% conscious. Don't just focus on that biceps curl. Focus on that biceps curl and how the rest of your body feels. Focus on what is happening with your breathing. Not for something specific, not in order to improve your biceps curl. just for the sake of the perception of your body. And that will also subconsciously tell your body, oh wow, I'm recognized. It wants information from me. He or she, or however you want to define your conscious parts. Alright, I wish you all the best. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below. I can imagine there might be a couple of them. If you're interested in any of the workshops, there are a couple of workshops coming up actually. One of them is the Croatia retreat between the 10th and the 17th of June. There are a couple of more retreats in summer. Some are close to Vienna in the Melk area where I work in conjunction with some other people. And then the next human basic training is going to be in Bali in December. So if you want to tune into any of my workshops or retreats, let me know. There is a link in the description below where you can check that out. Also on my YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks, again, I'll be posting more and more of those developmental movements things and stuff like that. Make sure to stay tuned and up to date. Hit that subscribe button if you liked that video and want to stay up to date. Not all my videos are 15 minutes long like this last one, but I think the information in here was worth spending that time, and I enjoyed it. I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful time. Take care. If you have questions, leave them down below. Other than that, thank you for watching and maybe see you sometime. Thanks a lot. Bye.